I actually time traveled the other day. I just got back, and I kind of saw what was going to happen this year. So
well, perfect.
Luckily,
right. Do I win a championship with my team?
No. Well, what do you think? Come on.
Great.
Seriously, Zach.
Here's what I cannot stand. People drive me crazy with this. Do not do this.
You know, we do a really good job of telling you guys how to manage your Dynasty rosters in the offseason. It's very easy. Dynasty content is flowing, but how about in season? How should you manage your roster? Well, in today's video, we've got some of the brightest in the industry. We're going to give you 4 tips and 2 trade targets in this video. Let's talk to the Dynasty domain boys here. This dynamic duo here, Nathan and Avery, guys, I appreciate you for being on. We love your channel. So I want to talk about managing your roster in season. We always talk about off-season buys, sells, strategies, you know, but it's like, well, what do I do when I'm in season? When everything in Dynasty is rapidly changing week to week, player values are dipping. So we're going to do 5 at least tips, and we'll start with you.
Yeah, so the main thing you really need to realize in season is there is more leverage one way or the other that you have over your opponents than any other time of year, right?
Yep.
Because when you have opponents in Dynasty leagues that are trying to contend, these guys are going to do whatever it takes, and rightfully so, because again, winning money in Dynasty leagues is the way to do it. You don't just punch a buy and go win money. And so people who are competing, they're going to do anything they can to win a Dynasty championship, right? And so the leverage that you have over those teams is significant. It's significant enough to where you can take, we talk about small value wins a lot. In the season, you can get big value wins, right? You're talking about 25 firsts being thrown around like they're candy because people are going to do anything they can, even if it doesn't give them an actual, significant advantage to win their championship. And so the leverage that way is super strong. So I'm going to say this, if you're rebuilding, you can absolutely leverage the frick out of some of your assets, get contenders to overpay for guys that are scoring points, and it's going to speed up your rebuild, right? The way to speed up a rebuild and the way to avoid rebuilds even is to accumulate value, is to take small value wins, make a ton of trades. But in season, you have a chance for some of those larger value wins that are really important to speeding up your rebuild. And so, while there's leverage that way, there's also leverage the other way. And for contending players, a lot of times you'll have people who take rebuilding to another extreme, right?
Yeah.
And this has been really popular here in the last couple of years. You have a lot of people that are now entering into what we call, perpetual rebuilds and basically just donating their buy-in because they get into Dynasty and they think I got to have all the youngest players, I got to have all the picks, I got to have all the sexiest roster, and then they end up, finishing 8th, 9th every year, and they're like, okay, the next year is the year I'm going to compete.
But I had 10 first-round picks over the next 2 years.
And
honestly, that on my wall.
Yeah, and even though you did that, how much money do you have in that Dynasty?
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. So it goes the other way too. You're going to have rebuilding teams that they're going to do everything they can to get assets that they think are sexy. And so they might even overpay for young players. And so as a contending team, the way that you can kind of avoid this is make sure you're not getting taken advantage of, but B, you can kind of leverage that against, rebuilding teams, get them to overpay for younger players, maybe get some value insulation back on top in the form of maybe some veteran players that aren't like, dying off a cliff like, Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs, right? You definitely don't want to just invest in those guys for all of your young assets. But it goes both ways. Again, people are just as – and the mistake people make, and it's one of the biggest mistakes in Dynasty, is people are just as passionate about rebuilding as they are contending. Yeah. And I'll tell you this, I'm 5 times more passionate about contending because I'm about 100 times more passionate about money in my pocket.
But it's so fun thinking about what my team could be. You know what I mean?
I was going to say
– for the rest of eternity, right?
You're calculating the future value of that team, but what you don't realize is in 5 years, your league's going to be dead and you're not going to win any money.
It's like being a fan of a team, a football team that's never won a Super Bowl. You just are constantly excited year after year of what your team could be. Year. And then
where are you the most excited, by the way? The NFL draft. If you're a fan of one of those teams, you're like, anything could happen.
This is it.
Okay, I love that. Okay, let's say that's like one sentence.
Leverage your opponents in Dynasty.
There you go.
Beautiful. Okay.
Boom.
Let's move to you then. All right. Second tip to manage your team in season.
Here's what I cannot stand. When people drive me crazy with this. They try to offload all of their productive assets before the season even starts because they know that they're probably not contending. Do not do this because the entire reason you're trying to offload your productive assets before the season starts is to offload points so that you can get the highest pick possible, right, in the following rookie draft. please don't do it, because at the end of the day, you don't know where your pick is going to land, even if you offload all of your productive assets. The young players that are already on your team, are they going to be the next Puka? Everybody likes talking about the next Puka. If you're a future value or a young team, like, stop worrying about where your pick's going to be and worry about accumulating the most value that you possibly can for guys that you know aren't going to be on your roster in December. Be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient. If you're a reload and you're trying to, like a couple years ago, trying to move off of Nick Chubb,
yeah.
and people are trying to get a first or second,
yeah.
getting him for a first or second, sell him for 2 firsts in the middle of the season when everyone's desperate for productive running backs. I do not understand why people are so bent on getting on getting the first overall pick, because I can't. We always have this joke where we were in a league where you had 4 teams that were in a productive struggle, and they were so set on getting the 101 in 2024. Legit, 4 people swore they had Caleb Williams on their roster already when they just had their normal rookie picks.
Like listing Caleb Williams when they were asking us trade questions.
I'm like,
you've already
dude,
drafted? Like, no.
You and 4 other people.
The season's not even over. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
It's whoever can suck the most, and everybody's going to decimate their dynasty team.
I'm the worst team.
Yeah. Exactly. But like Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, and Calvin Ridley are probably my favorite examples of this, because they are, in my opinion, the most common productive veteran wide receivers that are on teams that probably aren't going to seriously contend. And it's really, really tempting to offload them now. But I promise you, every single one of them, you will get almost double what you're getting for them now in market value in the middle of the season, because each one of them, people are going to finally realize mid-season, they're actually scoring points. They're actually going to contribute.
I would
to
add like a
league.
Devontae Adams there as well at this point of his career. Maybe Mike Evans as well, Cooper Kupp. So I agree with you. I think that's it's you want to maximize when a player's at its peak value, and you talked about this a little bit. Like when you have half your team competing for the 101, you've got a certain group. Your market's already there to go and sell a player in season. So certainly I'm in some rebuilds where I have like a Terry McLaurin, for example, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to sell him now. I couldn't even get a 2nd round pick in our rookie draft for this guy. So that's a really, really good idea. Like, don't just sell to sell. And patience, I'm glad you brought that up.
All the way to the trade deadline.
Everything. Yeah,
all the way
exactly.
to the trade deadline.
Patience is something that like we don't deploy enough in Dynasty. I know this because we have so many people hitting us with trades every day, and then we'll take like 2 hours to respond, and we're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, and they're like, well, I did it. I'm like,
well, not only that,
wait 2 hours.
Yes,
they're the most reactive community I've ever met. Like,
we love you.
Happens,
we love you.
No,
absolutely,
we love you. We do, but I mean, if something happens, if somebody's got a boot on one day at camp, I mean, they're falling in Dynasty ranks.
It's over.
It's a temporary thing, but whatever.
His eye got poked in practice. He's done.
Yeah,
he's not gonna be able to see all
Zach,
year.
Two very good tips. I'm gonna head right back to you. Okay. Tip number 3.
I'm
Tip
good.
number 3. People hear me all the time. They don't want to hear me anymore. I promise you. Okay.
I definitely don't think they want to hear me either. But
speaking of managing your roster, if you guys want a team review from Badaki and myself, it's very simple. All you got to do is become a Mother Flocker member, a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND on the Flock Fantasy website. You'll get access to all the premium tools, all the rankings that are constantly updated, articles, databases as well. Now, you have to be a yearly member, or you can go to the a la carte store and purchase one regardless of what promo code you use at sign up. Check out the pinned comments if you want us to give you that extra edge in your league. But let's get back to the video.
Tip number 3 for me is going to be about your rookie picks. And I think one of the most crucial mistakes that people make, there are so many ways I could go with this. Are you going to do a rookie pick tip too? Because
no, I'm going to go
through the gauntlet here.
Do it. Okay, let's go.
So the first thing that people do is they trade their rookie picks to try it because they think it's going to give them an advantage to contend. When in reality, when you're talking about fantasy football as a whole and dynasty fantasy football and winning championships, the amount of parity that comes with the range between weeks 14 and 17 is so high that you really can't do very much to give yourself an actual statistical advantage of winning your league if you're in the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, it is pretty much at that point luck, it's parity, and that's it. And so basically the skill in Dynasty is getting yourself to the playoffs, right? You're building a team, a good enough contending team that's going to get you to the playoffs. Once you're there, I mean, we all know this. We could have the best team of all time, and it's 1 week. And if Joe Mixon scores 1 million touchdowns that week, you're freaking screwed, right? And so here's what happens. We get in situations like that. We have really good teams, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to trade my 25 first away because I don't need it, and I'm going to do this because it's going to win me the league.
When you know you've clinched like week 11.
And then Amari Cooper goes off against you, and you lose in your playoffs, and your first is gone, right? Because and now that first, depending on where you finish in your league, if you're anywhere in the playoffs, it could be anywhere, from 8 to 12, from 7 to 12. That first may be early. In fact, I mean, it might be as early as the 107 in Dynasty leagues, and you've traded it away. And so the main thing that people do that I see it now, and I used to do it myself, and I'm like, you know what, this is not smart, is they trade away their first thinking, okay, this is going to win me the league. It's almost never going to win you the league. If your team is actually good enough to win a championship, the first is not going to do anything for you. So you should just hold your first. The other thing people do is if there is a situation where they should trade their first, which granted, I tell people sometimes when they ask me trade questions, I'm like, you know what, you can make that deal. That's a good move for you. It's not just this year. You can use that in the next year. Trade your first for that guy. The thing that people do that is kind of crazy is they trade their 25 first at either before the season or at the very beginning of the season based on who's performing then or who they think is going to perform. When in reality, what you should be doing is waiting until rebuilding teams realize they're going to be rebuilding. Then you can use your 25 first. You can get better assets. Wait until there's a fire sale for 4 different rosters in your league. Get the absolute best player that has not only shown that they're going to produce, but they're going to produce consistently now over the season that you're in. And pick your guy then. Don't try to pick your guy that you're going to go get with your first early if you're even going to trade your first. So you can summarize it to this. You don't need to trade your 25 first to win your championship. If you do trade it, don't trade it early in the season.
Or make sure, and add on to that, probably target a younger player that you think you can build around long term as well. It's funny you mentioned earlier, when you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen. I have this one team that's just haunted me for years. I always tell our community about it. I'll read you my starting lineup. Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey, Etienne, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Travis Kelce, DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Tua Tags. Have I won a single championship in that league?
Absolutely not.
No, I haven't. And it is clearly the best team.
That's infuriating.
It's been the best team for 3 years. Haven't been to playoffs every single time. So I love that tip. I think there's a whole lot of value when you break that down. Okay, Nathan, tip number 4.
This is very much for all y'all contenders, even middle of the pack teams that aren't sure if you're contending or just going to, fold and reload for the year. But well-rounded teams win you leagues, right? You can go into the season with a ton of dominant QBs. You can go into the season with a ton of dominant wide receivers. We love building our rosters, the value of our rosters through the quarterback and the wide receiver position in Superflex formats. But when push comes to shove in the middle of the season, you have got to invest in the running back position, and you've got to either entirely fade tight end or you got to get an elite tight end, right? Ferguson, in all honesty, probably just isn't gonna, give you a leg up over your league mates. So with that in mind, don't be afraid to make deals for some value volatile assets that are gonna score you points in season at positions of need, right? This is something that I think a lot of people, they're just hit with this reality at the start of the season. And then once you're a month into the year, you realize, like, I've got to make all these moves and overpay for guys that I could have gotten cheaper in August and just taking them there. So be aware of that. If you're getting ready to make a contending push, you're not going to make it through with a bunch of super not valuable running backs, for example. I mainly see it at the running back position because everyone wants to avoid it and fade it in the off season because there's so much value fluctuation, but you've got to do it.
Oddly enough, the best time to buy a running back is typically January, February, March, where there's so much uncertainty.
They lose so much value at that point.
Before the NFL draft, we're always concerned, this guy could lose his job. We love this class. And then it's like maybe one person loses their job in the NFL. Okay, so, let's I know we said 5 tips. Let's actually talk about one player you think in season is a perfect target and tell me what team should be targeting it.
I was going to say, so I actually time traveled the other day. I just got back, and I kind of saw what was going to happen this year. So
perfect.
Luckily,
right. Do I win a championship with my team?
No. Well, what do you think? Come on.
Great.
Seriously, Zach.
That's great.
I'm going to say that there's going to be some really good value with at least one of the rookie quarterbacks this year. The rookie quarterbacks are already going pretty low in Dynasty leagues, and as soon as you see one of these guys not produce, whether it's Nix, who's looked good in the preseason, whether it's May, who I think's looked really good in the preseason, whether it's you've seen J.J. McCarthy get injured, whether Caleb Williams goes through a stretch, stretch. Jaden Daniels might even have that as he, gets used to the NFL. I'm definitely forgetting a quarterback here, but I don't care. One of those guys is probably going to have some struggles. Probably multiple guys will have struggles in their rookie years, right?
Yeah.
I love taking advantage of people who overreact to rookies who don't perform right away, because you do not. I mean, rookies performing right away. Number one, that's really only become like a recent thing where it's like it actually happens more often than it used to.
Yeah.
With that being said, you're still going to have a fair amount of rookies that don't. And I think at the quarterback position, especially in Dynasty, like I said, you're playing in Superflex leagues. This is a premium position. This is a position that's going to give you a significant advantage. I just take advantage of whoever falls at that point. But
I love that. I mean, I'd even throw Michael Penix in there too if he's not playing.
Yeah.
That's probably you're missing. Yeah, like we've talked about this so many times, guys. I think we said this on your video we just recorded, but the way we all like to build is strong quarterback, strong wide receivers, maybe an elite tight end.
Yep.
There's never been an easier 1 year punt or 1 year rebuild with the quarterbacks that we have right now. So
it's awesome.
No, that's great. Okay, cool. And how about you?
Anybody
Finish off the
wanna
video.
guess?
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, Nathan. Okay, I'll give you a little synopsis. Nathan's going to talk about T.J. Hawkinson and say, "Oh, he's the
I
best,
love
blah,
it.
blah, blah."
Guys,
Talk
he's
it
the
up.
biggest buy in Dynasty, and it's not even close. Legit.
I'm not,
Seriously,
you're not saying that after this.
It doesn't take a time travel trip to November. It doesn't take a fortune teller to just know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, that TJ Hawkinson is going to increase in value significantly when he steps on the field again. And you're going to have a lot of teams that own TJ Hawkinson in the first quarter of the season that are like, dude, I need points. I started 2-3, and I have a competitive team, and I'm screwed if I don't make the playoffs. I've got Hawkinson on my team. Here, I'll ship him off for a bag of chips and get a guy that's productive that I know is probably going to decrease in value when it's all said and done heading into 2025. Hawkinson was literally on pace to be the tight end 1 in fantasy last year.
Oh, I whiffed big time on Hawkinson last year, so I agree. I think he's a very good buy.
I mean, you're going to whiff this year on some Colts players too, so at least you know how
I'm ready.
it feels already.
I'm ready. As long as you guys are ready. If something doesn't work
I got
out,
the
okay?
receipts. Like we're good.
Right.
Like we'll be dialed in for it. So.
Well, I was gonna say, so Hawkinson, if he is let's say, pushed back. Hey, we're week 10. He's not playing yet. I would say there's a couple names that you might be able to pivot from that we feel better about with Hawkinson long term. So an Njoku for me, for example.
Yep.
If he's performing, an Evan Ingram I think is a good pivot at that point. I don't want to say Kittle, but I would pivot from Kittle too.
Yeah, Kittle's a good guy.
Like you're just getting 3 years younger at similar production. So I think that's also a very good tip. All right, so we had 4 tips, 2 trade targets, and I'm going to give you a last tip. Make sure you have fun. All right, have fun with Dynasty football.
Yeah.
I know we
go.
talk strategy, obviously, we nerd it up, but have some freaking fun playing the game. All right, I've got so many people who message us and they're stressing out about trades. Brother, sit back, have fun. Don't let it bring stress to your life. All right, let it relieve the stress from your life. So we're gonna have a good season. Appreciate you guys for watching. Subscribe if you like the content, and we'll see you guys soon. Obviously, subscribe to Dynasty Domain, best in the biz, and we appreciate you guys coming on.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.